All right, here is another silly argument from the Catholics and Orthodox, part 15 here. And this argument is, hey, look at these early church quote-unquote fathers, and look, they agreed with my church. This shows that the early church was Orthodox, or that it was Catholic, and we should agree with them. And what makes this silly is the fact that it doesn't matter if they found a bunch of people from the first century that agrees with some of their teachings or even all of their teachings. This doesn't prove that their doctrine is true, right? The argument against Catholicism and Orthodoxy isn't that they don't have history to back up their church's existence. That's not why someone like me is not Catholic and not Orthodox. It's because you don't line up with the actual true early church fathers, which would be Jesus and the apostles. You don't line up with the scriptures, and you can quote anybody you want until you're blue in the face. You can quote 1 billion people from the first century, even though I'm not even sure there was that many people around, especially who would call themselves Christian. No doubt there wasn't that many. But let's just say you did. This doesn't prove what they believed was true, right? And to call them fathers when they're actually early church children is misleading. You're dismissing Jesus and the apostles, and then you're passing on to these other people as if they're the ones that actually are the foundation of the church and form the church, when that's not true. You're dismissing the scriptures, you're passing them off and giving it to these other people. But there's no reason for me to care what these people had to say. They have no authority. They're not infallible. And if I'm going to believe them, I'm going to test them to the scriptures, just like I'm going to test you to the scriptures to see if what you're teaching lines up. This is a very silly and straight up stupid argument. This does not prove your doctrine's correct. It just proves that there was people that believed it. And people might have believed certain things for a long period of time. That does not make it true. Right? Not to mention, you can go and you can grab people from the first century who called themselves Christian, but they were Gnostic, and be like, oh, look, the early church was Gnostic. And you would say, no, they were a heretical sect. Well, according to the Gnostics, you're the heretical sect. So how am I supposed to know which group to agree with? Well, I'm going to look at the scriptures, and I'm going to test you both to the scriptures. And in this case, none of you line up with the scriptures, so I'm not going to join any one of your groups. Right? But imagine if it was the other way around, where the Gnostic group spread faster, and it was the Gnostic group that joined with the Romans, and they persecuted the other sects. And then today, instead of the Catholic Orthodox Church, we have the East and West Gnostic churches. And they say, hey, look at the early church. And these Gnostic writers, they agree with us. This proves the early church was Gnostic. Would that prove that Gnosticism is true? No, it just proved that they grew faster and got into power and took everybody else out of the picture. So it looked like they're the only ones that existed when that was not the case. So hopefully, putting it that way, you can see that this is not evidence of anything. It doesn't prove your doctrines are true. It's silly. It really is. Hey, look, there's a guy from the first century who believes what I believe. That means it's true. Okay, so some Gnostic goes, hey, look, an early church believed this Gnostic view. That means my view's correct. You would say, no, that's heretical. Well, prove it. Well, it doesn't line up with my beliefs in my church. And it's like, okay, well, then you're wrong because your beliefs don't line up with my beliefs in my church, so you're wrong. You see how just stupid this is? And the weird thing is that these Catholics and these Orthodox, to be frank about it, they're like pigs and dogs. They really are, in the sense that they will roll in the mud in these arguments that go nowhere. And they're basically, nuh-uh, yaha, nuh-uh. And they'll go with that for hours. Like, they could do it forever. I never seen one of them quit until you say enough. Either you walk away and let them have the last word, you let them have the last nuh-uh or yaha kind of thing, or you just block them or whatever. They'll keep going. There's no end to that. They love rolling around in the mud and the filth. There's no point to it, but they'll do it because that's what dogs and pigs do. They love the filth. They really do. And that's why with these people, you may notice that I'll talk to them for a little bit, but a lot of times I don't get too deep in it. And what I mean by that is some of them will ask, well, show me all this documentation of these different groups, like the Albigenses and the Waldensians. And it's like, no, I'm not going out of my way to go get all this documentation in these websites to go give to you just for you to dismiss it, because you don't care. I can give you all the evidence in the world, and you're just going to spit on it and then spit on me. I'm not putting that much effort to get spit on, right? I mean, just spit on me and get over it with, and we can go about our lives, right? I mean, show your character, and we can get on with this, right? The same thing with a lot of these people. When, like, this video right here is about the early church fathers, but you know there's going to be a Catholic that's going to talk about Mary because I just mentioned Mary. So now that I mentioned Mary in passing, now they're just going to talk about Mary. And I'm going to be like, what does this have to do with the video? Well, in the video, you said her name. And it's like, okay, well, this conversation's done now because you're an unreasonable person, right? You're being unreasonable. Let's stick to the topic of the video, right? You want to jump to other things. I'm just going to assume you're disrespectful and you don't care about the truth. I'm not going to waste my time with you, okay? And you can complain about that all you want. Matter of fact, if you don't have your own channel going, get it started and make your own videos about it, right? And then people want to watch them? Awesome. Good for you, all right? But I'm not going to waste my time with all that. And that's why I'm just doing these short videos, talking about these little points so that I've answered all their silly arguments in these little videos. And to show why I'm not giving them a whole lot of time. Because why? Right? Because even though I make these videos, they're still going to use these same silly arguments. Right? From some Catholic or Orthodox watches this video, they're going to use some silly argument that I did in part 11 or part 7, right? Or in a future part, right? They just don't care. They think what they're saying actually proves them correct when it just proves that they don't care about the truth. They don't care about freedom and free thought. All right, they don't care about the truth, facts, and evidence. They definitely don't care about the Word of God and what it actually says. Right? But anyway, I made the point, rambling on a little bit here. So thank you for your time and attention watching these videos. I don't know if there's more. I thought I was done a couple of times. Like, I don't think there's any more. But then all of a sudden, there's more. So, I guess just stay tuned because there's probably going to be some more. But I'm not planning on doing them. Just a heads up there. I just make them as they come. So take care. I'll catch you in the next one. And may God bless you and yours.